So, Carlos, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into our topic of the day, which is gangs in the military.
All right, so my name is Carlos Armendariz. I am with the FBI. I'm a supervisor for the gang section, and I've been in law enforcement for 16 years. 8 of those years here locally with the El Paso Police Department. I worked everything from patrol to I was a detective. I worked TAC, which is burglary robberies, and I also worked homicides. And in the FBI, I've been doing gangs for 8 years.
Okay, so we're going to get right into it. So tell us about the presence of gangs within the military, and particularly here along the border in El Paso.
All right, so here in El Paso, we have just about every gang that you can think of. But I think we see higher trends amongst the black gangs like the Bloods, the Crips, and every variation thereof. Because it's not just one group. You have many sects within these groups, and then you also have bandidos, and we've seen some Barcastecas as well mixed in there. So we do have a good mix of all these gangs in the military.
Okay. And I'm going to come back to this other question later. Let me just keep straight here.
Yeah,
what are the most common types of gangs?
I would say probably the two bigger ones are the Bloods and the Crips.
Okay. And that are in the military? Yes,
and here locally that we deal with. And all their sects that they come with.
Well, those are the most. So what are some of the key challenges the FBI faces when it comes to addressing gang activity?
So there's a bunch of challenges that we have. One of them is that they've evolved, right? So you have things like social media and encryption. I think that's a huge one. Encryption, meaning that they've come onto our techniques, right? And so they'll use more of the encrypted stuff. We can always get around it, but it makes it harder to investigate. So that's one of the challenges that law enforcement in general face when dealing with people using WhatsApp and stuff like that. We also have gangs that have evolved. They're very decentralized now. So you don't see the typical hierarchy where there's one guy at the top kind of running everything. You kind of have these cells, and even enemies or gangs that are enemies that are supposed to be working with each other or are supposed to be fighting each other are working together. I mean, you see really bizarre stuff, but gangs have evolved. So that's another challenge that we have. On top of that, we especially as it pertains to the military, we see a lot of financial crimes. So gangs are kind of shifting from that, their primary, they still make a lot of money from narcotics and stuff like that, but which is your traditional stuff, but now they're also getting involved in financial crime, which is like bank fraud, stuff like that.
Okay. I wasn't expecting, I guess, the technical part of it. So when you say they evolved, that includes like internet and
exactly a lot of internet crimes,
AI
scams, different that type of thing.
Okay, I don't think most people think about that when you say gangs. No one, I think, relates it to technology.
Yeah, but we've seen a huge trend towards that.
Okay, so how do the gangs in military life differ from traditional street gangs?
One of the biggest things is training. Right, so here, you have somebody in the military, they receive years and years of training, whether it's firearms training, how to handle certain equipment and stuff like that. So I think that's probably the biggest difference. Usually when a military guy goes bad, it goes bad, right? So that's where you have the really bad consequences. And we'll get into some examples later on.
Yeah, okay. So with the impact of how it is with border security, how is the overall security situation here in the El Paso region?
As far as border security, I mean, I'm not going to say it's a huge problem, right? Like that we should be extremely, extremely worried about. But it certainly impacts us, right? So one of the examples that I can give is, whenever you have a shooting, right? Like I can give you an example that happened, maybe about 8 years ago. There was a service member who was a gang member. He went into one of the clubs downtown and he got kicked out of the club, because he was causing a problem there. He went back to his car. He came back and he sprayed the whole place. He ended up, shooting 7 people. One of them was almost killed, and then several others were hit by fragments and or non-lethal hits.
Mhm.
So anytime you have an impact like that, you have unintended consequences, right? People don't want to go out, they don't feel safe. Tourism may be impacted,
Mhm.
stuff like that in general. And then, not too long ago, maybe about a year ago, we had a service member that went to Mexico and killed his girlfriend, and he was also suspected to be involved in alien smuggling. So anytime you have, that type of violence, it impacts the area, whether you like it or not, because people read the news.
Mhm.
You have a lot of warnings that get put out. So anytime there's like an increase in violence or anything of that nature, you see people are wary about going out and
Yeah.
doing things.
So, and I know this question, I probably didn't preface it before, but is it more prevalent along the border when it comes to gangs in the military?
Yeah.
Or-
So yes. So one of the other things that, so I have another example, right? So we had a case where it was an ex-service member. So this guy had just retired from the military. He used his training and everything that came with that, and he was mailing out guns, right, left and right, ARs, and he was sending them down south to the cartels. So he was selling all these weapons, and so what happens is you have somebody supplying weapons to the cartels because that's what they need to fight their wars against each other over there, and so it destabilizes the region, right? So that's a huge thing. Like, I mean, if you want to go to Mexico, right, the Department of State has these warnings
Mhm.
where, hey, it's safe to go or it's not safe to go. Please avoid these areas of Mexico and things like that. So it impacts travel, it impacts tourism. There's a lot of unintended consequences because these weapons are making it out there, and right. So we're in the border,
Mhm.
and it's a unique problem. You're typically not going to see a lot of movement of weapons in cities that are up north.
Right.
You see it more towards the border. They get these people to either facilitate the transportation of weapons south,
Mhm.
and the consequences is pretty severe.
Okay. Um, yeah, I have another question too. So, do you believe that some of the gangs, like they encourage their members to join the military specifically for that reason?
Other than anecdotal evidence, I don't think that's
Okay.
I wouldn't say that's a huge trend.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can't think of an instance where
Okay.
we've talked to a gang member
And
and
they
they
just did.
specifically say, hey, join. You can certainly see why they would,
Right.
right? So, but I don't think there's any
Okay.
real evidence to say that gangs are encouraging their members to join.
Okay.
I think also the military does a pretty decent job of weeding out people with criminal histories,
Mhm.
with felonies, and so a lot of these members do have that background. So it's harder for them to join after they're in a gang,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
But a lot of times, they do get members that join that have none of that.
Mhm.
So you can have a little bit of that.
Okay. So, do you have any more specific examples? I know I'm always asking, you guys to give me some local stuff, but I know you can only do so much. You can only share so much. But are there any other examples of
Well,
here?
another really good example is last year, I think maybe like around August, we were doing a suppression initiative with our partners. That includes, I think, even the Army CID and EPPD and just every agency that works out at the Texas Anti-Gang Center. We were doing the suppression, and we were going out to bars in the area, monitoring for gang activity. And one of our agents came across an individual at a bar that, again, got kicked out. He was a service member, and they were watching him very closely because some remarks were made. And he goes to his car and pulls out a rifle, racks it, and then proceeds heading back towards the bar. right? So obviously our agents did what they needed to. EPPD was on scene. They stopped the guy. But can you imagine, what could have happened,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So there's always little things like that are always happening that can be prevented. But that's another incident where I can think of that, like I said, when a service member goes bad because of his training and everything. I mean, I think the guy was even, doing the tactical walk on his way back. It's like 1 or 2 in the morning. And, he was definitely probably not having good intentions, right? So we've had situations like that in the past. And that's just another example of, somebody using their training to hurt people.
And I think I thought this was a good topic for us because I don't think people believe that this happens like it's right now, like it's occurring now. So is that the case? Because I know we're talking about it right now, but
Yes.
it's because some of this may be recent.
Yeah, no. I mean, stuff is always happening. Like the financial fraud, it's so prevalent. And it involves a lot of service members that are doing it. They get their family members to help out, or friends, acquaintances. A lot of recruitment through Facebook. So we have a lot of that right now.
So can you give some more examples of maybe the financial part of that they're doing?
So I don't know if you've heard of the Fraud Bible?
No.
Have you heard of it? Okay. So if you look it up, you'll see it's like essentially like a Bible. It's just full of all sorts of scams, right? So it goes through different variations on how to scam people, how to scam banks, how to scam other people. If you look it up, so essentially it's down the line, all those little tips and tricks that these members use to, try to make some money through scams.
Okay. I'm going to look that up to see. Not that I want to do it, but just to see, to be aware of.
Yes,
because
no, it's very good to be able, because like you could be participating in it without even
not even knowing it.
Yeah, but usually you should know, right?
Okay,
like if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah, but I think so many people trust people in the military.
Right.
So it's like, oh no, they're a soldier. They can't be, doing any of this. So that's why I think this conversation is good. So that's what I'm going to be promoting, just to be careful. You never know. Okay. So what are the FBI strategies for disrupting gang networks within the military on the border here?
So we have a lot of liaison. So our strategy is we liaison with the folks on base. Anytime that we suspect a service member is a gang member, we're very quick to try to act on that. We can either get them federally or we can get them through the Code of Military Justice, right? So the military is very good because they're not supposed to be associating with gangs. And so they have all these rules that they can use against the service member to get them out, right? So we use that. So we have a lot of liaisons. And if there's an actual crime that took place, even for the ones that are, hey, we just think this guy's he's a gang member, he's posing, he's doing everything that's indicative of gang membership, we forward that information to the folks on base that need to know it on ECID, and we're good about trying to get them kicked out. Some of them even have clearances and stuff like that, so it can be a conflict.
How does the FBI work with other law enforcement agencies such as military police and local police departments when it comes to combating gang activity?
So, like I said, we have monthly meetings at the Texas Anti-Gang Center, sponsored by the HIDA, which is a high-intensity drug trafficking area group. And essentially, that's where we share all the information. We discuss the trends, what's going on. And so we try to address those accordingly.
Okay. Well, can you share some successful joint operations or intelligence sharing efforts that have led to maybe arrests or prosecutions of gang members?
Without really giving an actual example, I think the closest thing would be, like, for example, let's say somebody in that meeting says, hey, you might want to talk to this person because that person might have information on a particular gang, whether it's somebody from BOP or from the state prison, that he's like, hey, this gang member might have info and he may want to talk to you guys. And so we'll go out and we'll talk. And we've had a lot of success with that type of sharing.
Okay. So what advice would you give to members of the military who may be at risk of gang recruitment or involvement?
So that's a difficult question, but I think, idleness is the devil's workshop. Have you ever heard of that saying?
Yes.
Right. So a lot of times these individuals that get placed here, through the military, they get stationed here. They tend to be single. They tend to be from out of town. So stay busy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But and try to distance yourself from individuals that do kind of exhibit that type of behavior, because even though you may not be involved in it, but they tend to be like the popular guys that have very charismatic and have this tough personality, and so avoid that type of engaging in that type of behavior. I'm not going to say avoid all nightlife, but it certainly helps to listen to what the military advises you.
Right.
They have certain bars that they prohibit service members from going. So if they tell you don't go there, don't go there.
Right.
And also participate in different activities, right? Organized recreational activities, things that are healthy for the body and for the mind. And crime doesn't pay. It does not. It really doesn't. Right. But you know what does? Overtime. So if you need extra money, do some overtime. I don't know how that would fit into the military, but I think there's ways of trying to get extra money that doesn't involve illegal stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wanted to share this with the community because I think it's important to know. And ever since we've been doing this First Fridays with the FBI, all the different types of situations, people are listening and they're understanding. And this one, because we are a border town that's, we have a lot of military here. I think it's a pretty big deal for people to add that to situational awareness. So is there anything else you would like to share?
Yeah, so again, to help us help the community, right? One of the most important things is to report crimes, right? So if you see something, reach out through our website. We have plenty of tip lines. We also have the website for stopwesttexasgangs.org. And again, there's various tip lines that we also have through our website. I don't know all of them off the top of my head, but also if you suspect that there's a service member that's a gang member and he could be a threat to our national security, report it. Right? You can report it. You can remain anonymous, and we can look into it. Right? But be specific about what this person is doing or what the allegation is. If you think he's a gang member and he's posing on social media and he's throwing, all the signs and everything, just let us know. We'll look into it and we'll keep you out of it. Like I said, there's many ways that we try to essentially kick out that member so that he doesn't cause any issues. Also, I think that's probably the most important thing, and just let the community know that we're very hard at work. I think people would be surprised at how many hours the typical FBI agent on gangs puts towards the job. I mean, I have guys that literally work Monday through Monday, that are hard at work and trying to keep the community safe. And we have some pretty cool stuff coming up, and I think you guys will hear about it soon.
Okay. Oh, you said soon. I was going to say, when can we expect it?
Well, we never give a timeline.
Right, I know.
So we have several.
You guys keep giving me limited information, but I understand.
Yeah, we have some stuff coming up that I think the community will be very happy. Is community impact type
Okay.
stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you for coming on. Can you, that website again, it's stopwesttexasgangs.org?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. We'll definitely share out the other websites also with everyone. But I really, truly thank you for coming on and sharing this with us. And I'm sure you'll be back with this big project, I'm sure, whatever it is, to let us know how we in the community can help too.
Thank you.
Okay.